Yeah, you could hear it there. That was the scene in the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv earlier today as new attacks from Russia sent people rushing for cover. Now, this past weekend, residents there celebrated Kyiv Day, which commemorates the city's founding and the residents' history of resilience. As the war against Russia wages on, the holiday had special significance this year. Chris York is head of news at the Kyiv Post. He joins us live from the Ukrainian capital. Chris, it is very good to have you. I know it's late into the evening there, so thanks for joining us. Can you just sort of lay out what it's been like there the last couple days? And as we stand here and talk to you this evening, what is the scene inside Kyiv as you see it and know it?
Sure. It's been a really intense few days. As you'll know, over the winter, I think Kyiv got sort of used to being hit by these big missile and drone attacks once every 1 or 2 weeks. And when the spring came round and it became apparent that Putin's kind of mission to destroy civilian infrastructure and essentially freeze cities to death here, when the spring came round, it became apparent that that hadn't worked. And there was a couple of weeks where there was a sense of relief in Kyiv and people thought that the city had definitely survived, and a perhaps naive view that perhaps we'd got through the worst of it and things would be a bit better for Kyiv in the at least medium term. But then this month has just seen a massive uptick in attacks, and we've gone from being hit once every 1 or 2 weeks to it's been every other night during this month. And then over this weekend, I think there's been 3 or 4 attacks. And they've gone from being daytime attacks to nighttime attacks. So for everyone living in Kyiv at the moment, it's just become a regular occurrence that you get woken up by the sirens at 2, 3 in the morning. And then for anything from 20 minutes to an hour, there's just constant massive explosions just all around the city and above everyone's flats.
Hey, Chris, Lauren Wright here. As you know, the White House was initially hesitant to send F-16s to Ukraine. They thought it might escalate tensions with Russia. Then the U.S. Air Force Secretary said he didn't know if F-16s would be a game changer. Are they a game changer from your perspective? And what has changed in that regard as you're watching closely?
I think they will be a game changer. I think the big question, though, is how quickly they can train Ukrainian pilots on them and actually get them into action in Ukraine. It doesn't look like they will be here soon enough to take part in the long-awaited counteroffensive. So the counteroffensive will be I don't know any of the details, but they will assumably be carried out by all of the heavy tanks and things already provided by the West. But in the longer term, I think F-16s would definitely be a game changer towards the end of the year, perhaps.
Chris, it's Mike Vaquera in Washington. You talked about the counteroffensive, and that's exactly what I want to ask you about. We've seen wave after wave of these mercenary troops attacking Bakhmut, the Wagner group, those Russian mercenaries, being cut down and yet still gaining ground inch by inch in what has to be just a ghastly situation there. But is there a sense there that the Russian troops, the Russian offensive, has sort of exhausted itself now, and it now is the time for the Ukrainians to push back in the Donbass and along that eastern front?
I think so, yeah. I think you have to remember the Russians have been digging in all winter and they've built huge fortifications along all of the front lines. But fortifications are only as strong as the people who are defending them. And Russia's army currently consists of mobilized troops. And again, I don't know the details. If I did, somebody in Ukrainian intelligence and the Ministry of Defense would have messed up big time. But I would assume that Ukraine is going to attack in some very focused points along the front line, using all of that heavy weaponry that the West has been sending them. And none of these Russian troops are ever going to have come across anything like that. So I think it is a good time in terms of Russian morale and the state of the Russian troops in the front line. But how it will go, I can't make any predictions, but I think it will go well for Ukraine.
Chris, Michael Blake, thank you for your reporting. You know, we've been seeing a lot of recent data suggesting support that's happening from other countries as it relates to what's occurring there. Of course, U.S. being the largest donor at this point. Is there a sentiment that U.S. and allies may falter and actually rescind the support that's happening to the country and to the residents that are there?
I think there's a background worry that longer term that might happen, depending on what happens with, especially with US presidential elections. But at the moment, everyone, particularly in Kyiv, is just so grateful for US support. Like, as terrifying as it is to sit in your apartment and hear 20 explosions in the sky above your head during the night, each one of those explosions is an intercepted missile and drone. Hardly any of them are getting through because of the Patriot systems in particular and the weapons and support that the West has provided. So at the moment, there's just like an overwhelming sense of gratitude.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.